The International Adult and Continuing Education Hall of Fame, located at the University of Oklahoma, is celebrating its 20th year of honoring those who have contributed to adult education. Thurman J. White envisioned a Hall of Fame to honor and document contributions of the past to better build the future. Many organizations were asked to participate in establishing the hall, but it was not until 1996 that it found a home.
You know, it was sort of a little brave start, or a brave little start. So I think that, you know, it would be nice for people being inducted today to realize that the people who preceded them in the Hall of Fame, and others certainly, really paved the way for what has become quite a field, a large and impressive field.
Dr. James Pappas invited the Board of Directors to consider the University of Oklahoma College of Continuing Education to be the permanent site for the Hall's official headquarters. The founding members of the Hall established the qualifications and guidelines for the nomination process, the goal being to recognize and honor adult and continuing educators, living or deceased, who have distinguished themselves as scholars and practitioners. The Hall also serves as an inspiration to the next generation of continuing education leaders. 1993 through 1996 were the beginning years where the Hall was defining itself through the organizational functions, culture, and mode of operations for the Hall.
The discussions we had as the original Board of Trustees, we were putting together the philosophy, the criteria for induction into the Hall, and it was just a wonderful wealth of knowledge and experience from around the country and then internationally to include all of the various ways to look at adult learning and continuing education and indeed lifelong learning.
The first induction ceremony was held October 29, 1996 in Charlotte, North Carolina. 78 educators were inducted, including most of the founding board members. This first induction marked an important moment in the history of 20th century adult learning. Louisville, Kentucky was the home of the second induction ceremony that took place on April 12, 1997. 18 educators were inducted, including Barbara Bush and Dr. James Pappas. In 1997, the Hall of Fame was integrated onto the World Wide Web. During that year, the board began developing more detailed criteria for membership and adopted a new selection process. Joseph Ray was the executive director of the IACE Hall of Fame from 1996 to 1998 and was inducted into the Hall in 1999.
I began working with outreach in 1997. I was hired by Joe Ray, who was executive director for the Hall of Fame, working directly with Dr. Pappas, doing day-to-day operations, odds and ends jobs for the Hall, and it's grown ever since.
The third induction ceremony was held on November 14, 1998 in Atlanta, Georgia. 12 educators were inducted at the ceremony. The board worked on ensuring that all fields of continuing education were being represented. San Antonio, Texas was the home of the fourth induction ceremony on October 16, 1999. 21 educators were inducted at the ceremony that was held in conjunction with the AAACE National Conference. During this year, the board worked on future locations of the induction ceremony and reached out to the United Kingdom for potential candidates for induction. The induction ceremony in 2000 was once again in San Antonio, Texas on November 12, 2000. 6 educators were inducted at this time.
Well, I think it is a tremendous honor to be recognized by the Hall and inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I do believe that the induction ceremonies themselves are inspirational events.
Orlando, Florida was home to the induction ceremony on June 2, 2001. 7 educators were inducted at the ceremony. During this year, the board focused on bringing publicity to the Hall and began plans to link international and national organizations. New guidelines and procedures for inductee selection were also discussed. The 2002 induction ceremony was held in Toronto, Canada on April 18th. This was in conjunction with the University Council for Educational Administration, or UCEA. 11 educators were inducted at the ceremony. Inducted in 2002, Diane Starr's contribution to continuing education efforts in the U.S. Army has left an indelible mark on millions of soldiers around the world. Her achievements also include her involvement in revitalizing the Montgomery GI Bill's educational benefits. Diane has served on the IACE Hall of Fame Board of Directors, Strategic Planning Commission, Chair of the Selection Committee, and Chair of the Development Committee.
You know, it really has been enriching for me to be able to work with some of these people that I had never met before. For example, Carol Casworm and Ed Boone, and oh my goodness, I could just list them on and on and on. But what a wonderful opportunity it has been for me to create new friendships with these people.
In 2003, the induction ceremony was held in Norman, Oklahoma on March 7th. 12 educators were inducted at the ceremony.
It's a way of recognizing people who have made a contribution to the field over the years, and to keep them and their voices active in the field. I think the Hall of Fame was probably founded primarily to recognize people, but over the last decade or so, there's been also an opportunity to bring people together at conferences to talk about issues and so forth. I think that's been helpful to the field.
Austin, Texas was home to the 2004 induction ceremony. 11 educators were inducted at this time. 2004 was a year of change for the Hall, including new bylaws, which became effective on September 27th. This year was also when the Hall and the University of Oklahoma Foundation established an agreement of the Endowment Fund in addition to the existing operating fund. The Endowment Development Fund began offering 4 levels of giving, including bronze, silver, gold, and platinum levels.
Another piece that we were, and it wasn't just during my time, but it was becoming very intense, was how do we sustain the Hall through continuing membership gifts by those of us who've been inducted. How do we build that so the University of Oklahoma isn't shouldered with the staff, everything that goes into maintaining the archives of the Hall and putting on the ceremonies. We, as a board, really wanted to embrace how we get our members to contribute.
We wanted to have a life. We wanted perpetuity with the Hall. And if we didn't have a financial base that would remain with the Hall, wherever the Hall ultimately is located, the endowment goes with it. That was one of the designs that we put together and got approved. But the University of Oklahoma was very supportive in the whole process of our setting that process together and helping us implement the endowment program.
In 2005, the induction ceremony was in Boston, Massachusetts, on March 31st. There were 10 educators inducted. During this year, the Hall expanded into the areas including training and development, community colleges, military libraries, and non-governmental organizations. International induction ceremonies also began to be discussed during this year. Dallas, Texas was the home of the induction ceremony in 2006. 10 educators were inducted. The Strategic Planning Committee was formed during this year, and the registration fees were established. 2006 was also the year the first international induction ceremony occurred. 14 educators were inducted on September 27, 2006 in Bamberg, Germany.
Well, the backgrounds are 3 items. Number 1, John Henschke. Number 2, me. And number 3, a bottle of yellowtail wine. John and I were sitting in Pittsburgh, November 2005, at the IACE conference, the annual conference of the American Association of Adult and Continuing Education. And we shared a room, and we had a good evening, and we had this bottle of wine, and we were fantasizing and brainstorming. And there came up the idea and the question, well, this hall is called an international hall, but it never had an induction ceremony outside of the USA. Why? Why not? And so we started thinking and fantasizing, and how would it be possible?
On November 1st, 2007, 7 educators were inducted in Norfolk, Virginia.
My role in the hall is being part of the OU staff. And in that role, I help with being supportive of the daily business of the hall, supporting the board of directors, the executive committee, of course, the executive director, Dr. Pappas. The induction ceremony itself is just elegant and lovely, and it's very special, and everyone is in formal attire, and it's a beautiful evening. But I think for me, the most meaningful part of the day is when we have the symposium in the afternoon. And that is where all the new inductees get to spend a few minutes talking about themselves, their careers, their contributions, and they even touch on moments with their families as they made this journey in their careers. And so for me, that is always outstanding.
The University of Oklahoma hosted the 2008 induction ceremony on September 8th. 8 educators were inducted. The second International Induction Ceremony was held on December 4th, 2008 in Budapest, Hungary. 10 educators were inducted. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania was the home of the 2009 Induction Ceremony. On November 17th, 12 educators were inducted.
Well, the actual ceremony, it's a culmination of all that work and the processing and seeing the inductees and their families so excited. You can't help but get in the excitement. One of the most inside jokes that we have is my Vanna White imitation, where I hand the plaques and the medallions to the people, and we have a good laugh about that each year.
9 diverse educators were inducted in Guadalajara, Mexico on October 27, 2010. In 2010, the Hall of Fame also held a symposium at the 2010 National Scholarship Conference in North Carolina. The discussion included sustaining engagement in adult and continuing education. Toronto, Canada was the home of the 2011 induction ceremony. 16 educators were inducted into the hall on April 7th. The ceremony was held in conjunction with the University Professional and Continuing Education Association's annual conference. The International Adult and Continuing Education Virtual Hall also began this year. Housed at the University of Tennessee, the virtual hall allows inductees to upload their documents and journals for permanency.
Members of the Hall of Fame, Gary Miller, Janet Poley, and 1 or 2 others developed this initial concept paper of what turned out to be called a virtual Hall of Fame. And so they asked me if I would form a committee, an advisory committee, to kind of figure out what it might mean to have a virtual Hall of Fame. And so I did that, and other members of the Hall of Fame, Ralph Brockett, Sherrod Gibson, Susan Emo, Kathy King, and Mary Simpson, provided initial support. And John Peters, who's a faculty member at the University of Tennessee, made arrangements through his institution to host what we refer to as the VHOF, the Virtual Hall of Fame, and that resides at the University of Tennessee.
It's an archive of scholarly works available for educators and students who are doing research. And this is available worldwide, and it has already been accessed by many. So we're very proud of that.
Many resources were being lost from some of the outstanding pioneers in the field of adult and continuing education. Therefore, because of the new technologies and digitization of almost everything, it appeared to me a number of years ago that the hall needed to have a virtual presence.
Inducted in 2011, Romita Yucu has contributed to continuing education in Romania by establishing the continuing education system at the University of Bucharest. His achievements also include his projection and implementation of the first national strategy for continuing learning and education. Under his term as General Director in the Romanian Ministry of Education, Department for Continuing Learning and Education.
My induction was a very important moment in my professional life. It was a matter of recognition, but at the same time, from my point of view, it's a matter of serving community, educational community, lifelong learning society, and all the society in general. This is my obligation because I have been appointed, I have been selected. It's my duty to do my best in order to promote the third mission of the university, to serve the society all in all by promoting the best educational programs in lifelong learning way.
In 2012, the induction ceremony was held in Reno, Nevada on October 15th. 12 educators were inducted into the hall. This ceremony was held in conjunction with the National Council for Continuing Education and Training Conference. The Outstanding Mentor and In Memoriam plaques were created and placed in the physical hall this year.
One way we can acknowledge the hard work that uncountable people actually have done to bring the hall along, and I hope we can use it, the anniversary, as a stepping stone, if you will, or a point of departure, and think ahead to ways we can continue to sustain and strengthen the Hall of Fame.
On November 19, 2013, 14 educators were inducted in Orlando, Florida. The induction ceremony was held in conjunction with the 19th Annual Sloan Consortium International Conference.
All of the Hall members, and there are quite a few of them now, to their ability to do this would be to support the Hall through their nominations to become a part of the Hall, and also their financial contributions. And also to continue with bringing in not just people from the United States, but making an effort to make sure that we recognize adult educators from all parts of the world.
IACE, Romania was the home of the 2014 induction ceremony. 10 educators were inducted on April 29th. The induction ceremony was held in conjunction with the 4th International Conference on Adult Education in Universities. Dr. James Pappas received the distinction of Professor Honoris Causa at the event.
Well, that was a significant event in my life. Receiving that professorship was important. And it was important because I became essentially a formal colleague of the distinguished faculty at the University of Bucharest. They were a group of adult educators and lifelong educators and professors of andragogy who were significant figures in the field. And for them to accept me as a colleague was indeed an honor. But beyond my receiving the award, I also recognize that the award in part was given for the work that many of us have done in the hall. It was a recognition, if you will, of our work in trying to recognize international colleagues. And it was a wonderful culmination in many ways, because it said that we are indeed colleagues across the world. And wherever we are, wherever we live, whatever students we work with, we all try to do many of the same things in helping those students to become better lifelong learners personally and to help foster adult and continuing education throughout the world. Receiving that honor was particularly moving to me and a very poignant experience because many of the faculty at that institution were either very senior or very junior. And there was a generation of adult educators that were not there. And the reason they were not there was that the previous political government had banned psychological and educational sciences. And for the fact that that group of faculty have reemerged and are teaching in this field was very significant because it really speaks to the importance of the ideas that we have and how fragile some of those ideas may be under totalitarian governments. So the fact that I received the honor from that group of faculty, many of whom had to struggle through a period of time when they weren't allowed to teach what they wanted to teach, was very important. It's important to recognize, I think, that the work that we do in adult and continuing education does indeed transform lives. and it makes a difference in our nations and certainly in the world. So I thank that faculty for giving me the honor, but I thank them even more for sustaining the idea of lifelong learning.
When I was inducted in 1998, I just thought, well, that's a nice idea, and it's an honor to be involved in that. But I would encourage anybody and everybody that is in the field of adult education is to continue to make your contributions and do your workshops and do the papers that you have and provide them and stay in contact with people in the field, because the members of the hall are the ones that are really the primary movers to reach out and get other people nominated for the hall and inducted and so forth.
Every day, hundreds of students walk the hall. These plaques and the people they represent serve as a reminder of what the future holds and the opportunities that await them.
This presentation was prepared partly to welcome the 25 new inductees that we'll be having this year in 2015. This is really the second largest class we've ever had. From the very first induction to now this one, we have a large group of people who are being recognized. It's exciting to see the diversity, the international nature, and the contributions that this group has given. But again, it is simply a representation of all the people who've been inducted to the hall. We hope that the hall will remain a significant activity in the lives of adult and continuing educators. It is important for us to recognize the work that those who went before us have done to prepare the field. And so in closing, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the many people who've been inducted, who have made a difference in the lives of their students, their trainees, their conferees, and their participants. Thank you from me, and thank you from all the people whose lives you've touched.